Okay, welcome back. This is part two. In part two, we're going to look at the definition of economics. From that definition, we'll extract 5 components according to the text that we're going to follow. But of these 5, we're going to look at 4 that we'll be needing. The last one, since the text is mentioning it, I'll just summarize it. So, where are we? The problem with the definition of economics is every book has its own definition, and every definition seems to be different from the other. So this is the definition of Stiglitz and Walsh on page 4, as you see over here. The reference is over here, so you can just cross-check it with the reference. So basically, economics is a discipline that studies how individuals, firms, government, and other organizations make choices, and how these choices determine a society's use of resources. Have you noticed that except for the first one, individuals, all three are, we're talking about organizations, firms, government, and other organizations, right?
Yes.
So over here, we look at the book has mentioned 4 separate entities, a group of individuals. Who are these individuals? Farms. Who is the farm? How do we define a farm? Government. How do we define a government? And how do we define other organizations? Thank you. Whoever's got there unmuted. Okay. Individuals means basically buyers. Individuals means basically households. So when we are talking about individuals, we're talking about individual families or individuals themselves who are consumers. They're not producers. Got it? This is how we are going to define individuals. Acha. Next, how do we define farms? Farms define করার একটা problem আছে. Farms can be buyers, farms can also be producers, right? For example, Brack University. If we consider Brack University to be a farm, Brack University produces a particular service, education. But at the same time, Brack University is also a buyer. They're hiring people, they're buying different inputs from different markets. So how do we define a farm? The farm we define as a unit that produces and sells. But you can easily make an argument that why farms can also be buyers, can't they? A farmer can buy করে না?
Yes, sir.
Farms can also buy, but we are in our model we are going to look at farms as sellers who produce something to sell on the market. Individuals are households who have a certain income or whatever, and they're going to buy something from the farms. So these are the 2 institutions that we're going to look at: individuals, households, and the farms. The other 2 institutions that we mentioned in the definition are government and other organizations. Now, when we say the government, we automatically equate that the government is doing something for the whole society. Not necessarily so. BRTC is a commercial venture that belongs to the government. Teletalk is a commercial venture that belongs to the government. Bangladesh Biman, Bangladesh Railway, Bangladesh Betar, Bangladesh Television, these are all commercial ventures that belong to the government. At the same time, the government also operates a massive health sector, a massive education sector. That is the government's responsibility for the society. But at the same time, the government equally operates like as a commercial firm in the examples that we just made. তাই না? গভর্নমেন্টে এরকম 2 ধরনের ফার্ম আছে না? One firm is like Teletalk, Bangladesh Biman, Bangladesh Railway, BTV, Bangladesh Betar, etc., which are all commercial ventures that compete with other private organizations. At the same time, the government also has various operations where it makes it has a social responsibility, which we will discuss later on. We are not interested in government institutions, neither are we interested in institutions like NGOs. So when we are talking about those four institutions, we are looking at the households and we are looking at the farms. Now,
Can NGOs are also involved in economic sector? NGOs like Red Cross, Red Crescent.
they are definitely like any other farm, but we will look at farms only as private farms. These private farms may be government farms. They can also be NGOs. Okay, so the objective is to make a profit. For example, Bangladesh Biman, the objective is to make a profit, right? Bangladesh Betar, its objective is to make a profit, but they belong to the government. Similarly, like Teletalk. তাহলে টেলিটক এটাকে একটা কমার্শিয়াল ভেঞ্চার না বাংলাদেশ গভর্নমেন্টের?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Whether they make a loss, that's a different thing. But the objective of these farms, whether they are owned by the government, whether they are owned by the private sector, or whether they are owned by some social organization like an NGO, the objective is to make a profit. How we define the profits, we can come to that argument later on. ঠিক আছে? But we will do. আচ্ছা, তাইলে এখন হলো. So these are the four groups that we defined, and we defined that we are interested in the first two only. Choices means how decisions are made. Society's use of resources. Aha, this is what we want to see. When we look at a decision, the decision is made on the market. When a decision is made on the market, it is the sum total effect of all the buyers, sum total effect of all the producers. So if we are talking about a market equilibrium, we are not talking about an individual household or an individual farm's equilibrium. We are talking about the equilibrium, all the banana buyers and all the banana producers at the same time. Clear about?
Yes, sir.
So when we are talking about an equilibrium, we're looking at, we're focusing on the market. And the market is not for one particular household or one particular farm. We'll start off with one particular household, one particular farm, but then we're going to add it up and see how the markets function. So once we talk about the markets, we are talking about how resources are being used. Why? If a market overproduces, there will be a surplus. If a market underproduces, there will be a shortage. So these have consequences on the society. In that case, how will these be solved? That we'll discuss later on. Now, we are going to link some keywords. What determines a choice? That means, how do we make a choice? What are the consequences of a choice? We don't know what the consequence will be, but we can calculate, we can predict before making a decision what the consequence of the choice could be. Okay. Now, the five components of our definition, we are now going to expand it into number one, trade-offs, number two, incentives, number three, exchange, number four, information, number five, distribution. Acha. Why do trade-offs arise? How do we address them? What are incentives? How do they influence our decision making? What type of an exchange do we want to look at in our model building? What type of information sets do the two people who want to make a transaction have? Finally, the distribution. How is wealth affected by choices made? Now, acha. If you've done an economics course before, one of the first things the teacher must have said is that economics is based on scarcity, right?
Yes, sir.
Because of scarcity, okay, we have to confront choices. The heaven on earth in our lifetime is probably when we are in our mother's womb. আমরা যখন মায়ের মাতৃগর্ভে ছিলাম তখন কিন্তু we didn't have to worry about anything, right? Everything came to us automatically. The moment we came to planet Earth, we started fighting, we started crying. Why? We just ran out of oxygen. তার মেজাজটা গরম হয়ে গেছে, বাচ্চা কান্না শুরু করছে। বাচ্চা না কানলে তো মুরব্বীরা ভয় পেয়ে যায়, কাঁদে না কেন? তো because of scarcity of oxygen, which was coming automatically, the child had to fight to get oxygen. Because of scarcity, we have to make a choice. Now, scarcity has 3 dimensions. You can add even more. What is the foundation of choice? The foundation of choice is scarcity. We make choice based on limited resources. Our resources are never abundantly available. Number 2, we have technology constraints. Number 3, we have time constraint. Limited resources are key. If we are looking at an individual, then the limited resources indicates that person's income in a particular period. So everybody, let's assume that everybody here is a service holder working somewhere. So at the end of the month, they get they earn a certain salary. Based on that, this is the environment they find themselves in. This is the assumption that they have a limited income. Based on that, they make a choice that I'm going to buy this amount of this amount of that. ঠিক আছে? আচ্ছা, have you gone to Pizza Hut or somewhere where you eat as much pizza as you like?
Yes, sir.
Huh? But do they no, not, or is it the drinks are free? কোনটা free থাকে?
Sir, দুইটাই স্যার।
আচ্ছা, দুইটা থাকে, আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে। But can you take a bounty with you and then say, okay, give me 100 pieces of pizza, I'll eat it at home? এটা দেবে?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir. No, sir.
They'll give you a certain time limit that you have to finish it within 1 hour. ঠিক আছে? Why? Because in 1 hour there is an upper limit, i.e. there's a scarcity maximum of how many pieces of pizza or how many glasses of drinks you can consume. ঠিক আছে? Even if you go to a festival, food is free, but the thing is you can't take the food back with you to your house. So because of these constraints, we cannot consume as much as we want, because another thing, we don't have enough time. Even if you're rich enough to buy whatever you like, you'll never have enough time to consume it. Now, how do we make the choice? X and Y are 2 options in front of us. Both of them are available. That means I can have a pizza and a drink. I can also have a biryani. But I cannot have both of them. Why? Because my income is limited. My resources are limited. My time is also limited. I have enough time to eat any one of the 2. Either it's a pizza and a drink, or Y is a biryani. Okay, so how do we make a choice? Forget the modeling. What do? We go for
We calculate the opportunity cost, sir.
No, obviously I don't use the technical terms. Somebody might not have heard the terms. Okay.
We will trade off.
আচ্ছা, trade off হচ্ছে যে basically we calculate our personal preferences, right? Our personal preference calculate করি।
We will
Yes, sir.
set a priority, and based on that,
commodity based output দেবে, আমরা সেইটাকে চুজ করব।
আচ্ছা, who used the word best?
স্যার ইশাতি রাদিয়া।
আচ্ছা, when you use the word best, that means there was something in front of you that was better and good, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The moment you say that this is the among the 2, I found X to be the best, or I found Y to be the best, based on some personal preference. The moment you use the word best, which is a superlative degree, that means something better or good must have been available. তার মানে কি আমরা র্যাঙ্কিং করেছি না?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
আমাদের র্যাঙ্কিং করেছি একটা, তাই না? ইভেন ইফ উই ডোন্ট ডু ইট অন কলমে না করলেও আমরা মনে মনে মাথার ভিতরে একটা র্যাঙ্কিং করেছি, দিস ইজ দ্য বেস্ট, বাট দ্য বেটার এন্ড দ্য গুড অপশনস ওয়ার অ্যাভেলেবল ইন ফ্রন্ট অফ মি. So basically what we did something called cost benefit analysis. What is that? If I take X, what is the cost that I have to pay? Sometimes the cost may be price, sometimes even it might be a health concern. So somebody might not should not be taking biryani because it's very greasy, etc. So they have one kind of calculation. Next, what benefit do I have? For any benefit we have to pay a price, a cost.
Sir, it's the cost effective.
So if it is cost effective, তার মানে কি আমি এখন মশা মারতে চাই, আমি মশা কি কামান দিয়ে মারতে পারবো না?
স্যার এটা কস্ট ইফেক্টিভ হবে না কারণ ওর প্রাইসিং এর জন্য।
আমি কামান দিয়ে তো মারতে পারি, তাই না? মশা কামান দিয়ে মারা যাবে না?
ইয়েস
জি,
স্যার।
yes, sir.
That's the phrase, মশা মারতে কামান লাগে।
Yes, sir.
ওকে, সো আমি মশা কামান দিয়েও মারতে পারি। আমার মশা I can do it with some spray or even with Odomos cream. Are you familiar with Odomos cream?
Yes, sir.
And যারা সন্ধ্যার সময় বাইরে হতে বসো, so we can that means there are three options in front of us. We can use a spray, we can use Odomos cream, we can use a kaman to kill mosquitoes. We can also use one of those electronic bats. Wave ছাড়ে তারপর বসে বসে মশা মারে, ঠিক আছে? So the main thing is we are basically comparing the various options in front of us. The moment we use the word comparing, we are ranking. Now you tell me, what is the rational thing to do? If it is something that we like, we rank from in descending order, Korina, from highest to the lowest.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If it is something that we don't like, say costs, expenditures, then we rank the opposite way. Opposite bhabe rank Korina.
Yes, sir.
Which is the lowest cost, and then we go for next one. I'm thinking which is the higher one, which is the higher one. So it doesn't matter if it is something that we like, say profits, utility, whatever it is. We always rank the descending order. If it is something that we don't like, whatever it is, we rank in the opposite way, from minimum to the maximum, right? And then we choose the minimum. Basically, what we do when we make a decision, since we are constrained by income, since we are constrained by technology, and we are also constrained by time, even though X and Y, before making a decision, both were in front of us, we have to choose one over the other. The moment I choose X, I sacrifice Y. So then I say, Y is the opportunity cost of choosing X. If somebody says, no, I liked Y over X, for me Y was greater than X, that means I chose Y, then X is the opportunity cost of choosing Y. ঠিক আছে তো?
Yes,
Right?
sir.
আচ্ছা, now we formally do this one. Before you decided to do a master's at BRACU, you had, say, three options in front of you, A, B, C. A is one university, C is another university. B is BRAC, since it's B. Okay, you decided to choose B. So what will your ranking be? B is greater than C, is greater than A. What about B is greater than A, is greater than C? তাই না? এর বাইরে আর কিছু?
No, sir.
Okay. So since we've decided that all of us here are from BRAC University and BRAC starts with the letter B, so B is better than C, better than A, or B is better than A, is better than C. Now what's the opportunity cost? Which one did you choose?
A,
No, you chose B.
no, the immediate
B,
one.
B, sir.
The immediate one is the opportunity cost. So if somebody's ranking is B, A, C, the opportunity cost of choosing B was A, sacrificing A. The next best, the second one. If somebody's ranking was B, C, A, Then choosing B, the opportunity cost was sacrificing C, the second one. ওই immediate one টা কে বলছে? Immediate শব্দটা?
ইশাতি রাদিয়াস
Acha, good. Immediate one, the book says second next best alternative. All the textbooks give only two alternatives. In real world, you never have two options in front of you. এখানে যারা যারাই আমরা এখানে মানে এমবিএ পড়তে আসছি কারোর সামনে কি শুধু দুইটা অপশন ছিল? অনেকগুলো অপশন ছিল না, তিনটা চারটা?
Yes, sir, of course.
Yes, sir.
You never have only two options in front of you. That's absolutely silly. It doesn't make sense. So you must have had more than three or at least three. So you ranked and you chose B. The second one that was your second one, that is the opportunity cost of choosing the first one. So this is how we measure opportunity cost. Now, what is a sunk cost?
The one which is already gone.
সি যেটাকে আমরা একদম বাদ দিয়ে দিচ্ছি
Just a second. রদিয়াত কি বললা তুমি?
স্যার সাঙ্ক কস্ট হচ্ছে যেটাকে আমরা টোটালি বাদ দিয়ে দিচ্ছি
Okay. Sunk cost হচ্ছে since you have committed to study in BRAC and you have finished one semester, all the options that were available before making the decision, এগুলি একটাও কি এখন আছে?
No, sir.
That's why it's a sunk cost, because you can't make a choice now from them.
জি স্যার
The objective of using the word sunk cost means the cost has sunk. এটা ডুবে গেছে, so we can't bring it back. Why can't we bring it back? Before we committed ourselves to BRAC, B, A and C were available to us, whether that was BAC or BCA. But once we committed that we're going to choose B for BRAC, A and C or C and A are no longer available. What role does this play in decision making? In decision making, sunk cost has no influence. That means once we have made the decision, the past is irrelevant. এটা কি this is not practical কিন্তু তাই না?
Yes, sir.
Let me give you a classic example. I'm going to use the girls মেয়েদের উদাহরণ দিব কারণ এটা আমার কাছে একটু মানে প্র্যাকটিক্যাল মনে হয়। মেয়েরা কি they tend to buy a lot of shoes, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
জুতাটা কিনে ফেললাম 7 দিন পরে মনে হয় না ধরো কেনাটা ঠিক হয় নাই, এরকম মনে হয়?
Yes, sir. Sometimes I thought that.
একটু বায়ার্স রিমোর্স হয় স্যার।
এটা হয়তো, কিন্তু when you made the decision, wasn't it the best decision at that particular time?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it was.
মানে এটা 7 দিন পরে পড়ার পরে না হয় আমরা বুঝলাম যে ওকে ইটস নট কমফোর্টেবল, ইটস হ্যাঁ ভালো লাগছে না ফোস্টা
It's not about shoes, it's all about dresses also, sir. Dresses.
even with mobile phones কেনার সময় হয়তো মনে হলো যে খুব ভালো, এক সপ্তাহ পরে আর ভালো লাগছে না, তাই না? But when you made the decision, wasn't it the best decision at that particular point based on whatever information you had at that point?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's what we are interested in. The sunk cost is irrelevant because we cannot compare from those, we cannot choose from all the options that we have sacrificed. That's why it's irrelevant. The past is irrelevant. But from a behavioral point of view, যেটা হয় কি আমরা মানুষের মাথায় যেটা থেকে যায় যে it wasn't a good choice, etc.
Yes, sir. Cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive, oh, who used this word?
Sir, me, Sanjana.
কি নাম?
Sanjana.
তামিয়ানা?
Sanjana, sir. Sanjana. Sanjana.
Sanjana, আচ্ছা আচ্ছা very good. It's cognitive problems এগুলো। আচ্ছা তাহলে now so it doesn't matter whether your ranking was BAC or BCA, and why are we ranking? We rank in order to find the best or the worst. If it is something that we like, we want to identify the best, so the ranking will be in descending order. If it is for something that we don't like, we want to identify the worst, then it will be in ascending order. So that's why we rank in order to compare. Now, once you've chosen B, A and C don't exist anymore. You're in a new environment. Thus, the cost of choosing B over A and also C is now a sunk cost after the choice. Because of scarcity, we cannot choose ABC. Acha, opportunity cost versus sunk cost. The detail is that we can analyze a decision only before it is taken. Once a decision has been taken, we enter a new environment. That means we are now a student of BRAC University in the MBA program. And once we are a student in BRAC University in the MBA program, the ABC options that we had before are now a new set of ABC. That means আমরা কি এই কোর্সটা এখন নিব, এই কোর্সটা কি পরে নিব, এখন এই প্রশ্নগুলো আসতেছে না। Once you've entered the BRAC University in the MBA program,
Yes, sir.
the ABCs that we had before we came to BRAC are now a different set of ABCs because we are confronting a different environment altogether. Okay, opportunity cost analysis does not consider sunk costs. The past does not influence. However, behaviorally, the cognitive Sanjana যেটা বলছে, for psychologically, it does influence our decisions if we're not happy. Acha. So before we move to topic number 2, does anybody have any questions regarding the opportunity cost thing?
Sir, is sunk cost measurable numerically?
Sunk cost to measure করা যাবে না তো, because you've already committed. For example, do you work anywhere?
Yes, sir.
So where do you
Yes,
work?
I work at Upwork. Yes, sir.
Sorry?
I work at Upwork. It's a freelancing platform.
Okay, lovely. Now, your company has decided to buy a car, a bus for a microbus for
Yes, sir.
the staff, to bring the staff to office and take them back home. Okay. Now, before they decided to buy the car,
Yes, sir.
they could have used this money in other ways, right? They could have given you a monthly allowance. So, okay, you get this monthly allowance, you use it for your traveling. এটা করতে পারতো না? That was an option.
Yes, sir.
But once they have decided that they're going to buy the car, whatever the price of the car is, that decision has been taken. The option for giving you an allowance for traveling that no longer exists now. Right now, once you've committed that you're going to buy the car,
Yes, sir.
and exists.
No, sir.
So that's why the past does not influence our decision making. That's what we think. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's why, but behaviorally, just Sanjana jeta bolche, cognitively, we get, it hits our mind. যে এই জুতাটা কেনা ঠিক হয় নাই, এই জামাটা কেনা ঠিক হয় নাই, ঠিক আছে? এই বইটা একটা বই কিনলা, the বই কিনে after 10 pages you find it's a disaster. So টাকাটা জলে গেল না, but when you make the decision to buy the book at that particular time, that was the right thing to do. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. This is the way that we're going to look at it. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Acha, now the second topic that we're going to look at is incentives. What do we mean by incentives? Incentives is an environment we find ourselves in, and the environment is such that we find encouragement to do something, or we find encouragement not to do something. এটা কি বুঝাতে পারছি আমি?
Sir, I can't understand it.
Acha. For example, if the price of something goes up, we find an incentive not to buy or buy less, right?
Yes, sir.
If the price of something goes up, if you're a seller, you find an incentive to sell as much as you can. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That we find ourselves in, what are the indicators? What are the traffic lights? When we see red, how do we react? When we say yellow, how do we react? When we say green, how do we react? So incentives, the moment we use the word incentive, we also have to think about its counterpart, disincentives. For example, the government is imposing tax on individuals and farms. Isn't that a disincentive?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
না এখন গভর্নমেন্ট হয়তো যুক্তি দেখাবে যে উইথ দিস মানি উই আর গোইং টু স্পেন্ড ইট ফর সামথিং এলস, এটা বানাবো ওটা বানাবো যেটা সমাজের সবার লাগবে, the government is taking money out of my pocket through taxes, whether that is VAT, whether that is income tax, whether that is corporate tax. Somehow the government is taking money out of my pocket, right?
Yes, sir.
Acha.
Yes, sir.
তাইলে the next thing that we want to look at, how does a system create incentives, that means encourages us to do something. At the same time, the opposite thing can also be looked at. How does a system create disincentives that discourages us to do something? So the model that we're going to look at, we find out what the indicators are. মানে গ্রিন বাতিতে how do we respond, ইয়েলো বাতিতে কিভাবে রেসপন্ড করি, সবুজ লাল বাতিতে কিভাবে রেসপন্ড করব. In a traffic light there is only 3 colors, so we respond in different ways. Incentives. How choices are influenced by changing environments. Changing environments means when the price changes, it increases or decreases. Changing environment could mean when more quantity is available or less quantity is available. So if the price of fuel increases, how will this influence the choice of first-time car buyers?
So they'll be discouraged.
Acha, they can also think of making an finding a substitute, right? No?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, the government has increased the price of fuel. So if you are a first-time car buyer, so you will definitely think that will I buy the car? The first thing you will now think, what is the alternative if I don't buy the car? Is it possible for you to survive on Uber? এটা একটা চিন্তা করা যাবে না?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
আচ্ছা, if it's not Uber, can I travel in this city by bus?
Or by bike or CNG.
Or by CNG, whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're a first-time car buyer and you find that the government has increased the price of fuel, this will definitely create a disincentive on your part. If you're a buyer, this will discourage you to buy the car. In that case, if you need a medium to travel, definitely you will think about what the alternatives are. The reverse can also happen. The government gives some soft loans, or banks start to give soft loans in order to buy a vehicle. The automobile loan আছে প্রত্যেকটা ব্যাংকের আছে. One second, please. Oh, sorry. The opposite can also happen. The government can also make our life easier. So what happens is, when the environment changes, our decision making is also influenced. If it is encouraged, it creates an incentive. If it is discouraged, it creates a disincentive. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
তাহলে এখন আমরা incentives এ যাই. If you have any questions, please ask. So if the price of fuel increases, okay, and how will this influence first-time car buyers? You think about another thing. Decision is a cost benefit analysis টা করলাম আমরা, যে what are the alternatives in front of me? If I don't buy a car right now, if I buy a car, this is the maintenance cost. Okay, if I don't use a car, what are the alternatives? What are the costs for that? If I want to buy a personal car for personal convenience, personal comfort, then definitely I'll buy the car even if the price has gone up of fuel. But if I'm not worried about convenience, and probably I'm a single person, I don't have a family, then I can travel by motorcycle if I want to. Okay, so you think about examples like this. Acha, this is what we need to do in our model building. Incentives is when an external sorry. Incentives is when an external environment encourages you to do something. Disincentive is when an external environment discourages you to do something. আমরা যদি incentives এর কথা বলি আমাদেরকে অবশ্যই এর counterpart disincentives এর কথা বলতে হবে. So if the price increases, it influences demand in one way, supply in another way. So something happens on the market in resource allocation. If the price falls, it does the same thing. It affects demand in one way, supply in another. Now, the question that we will be asking is, when will the incentive work? These are all common sense, practical knowledge. You don't need to be an economics graduate to answer these questions. When will disincentive work? When will neither work? Incentives or disincentives, whatever terminology we use, may be natural within a system, i.e. prices, or it could be forced upon us. Kirokom? Those of you who are working somewhere, প্রত্যেকে একটা কন্ট্রাক্ট আছে না, একটা কন্ট্রাক্ট সাইন করতে হয়েছে না?
Yes, sir.
এবং ওই কন্ট্রাক্টে একদম ক্লিয়ারলি লেখা আছে না, if you do this you will get this price. There is if you do this you will get this price. If you do this you will be penalized. এরকম আছে না কন্ট্রাক্টে?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir. All terms and conditions, sir.
terms and conditions ki incentives or disincentives na?
Yes, sir.
In a market setting we are using prices. Okay, but that is not the only thing in front of us. Sometimes these are done externally through a contract. We sign the contract, we know that okay, if I do this, this is the price I'll get. If I do this, this is the punishment I'll get. So okay, so incentives may be natural within a system. For example, prices, they can also be external. Contract. For example, the government might make it mandatory to have a COVID vaccine, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The government has said that okay, we'll give it to you for free. You come and take it. You register with Surakha, and then when your time comes, we'll give it to you. But এমনও হতে পারে, if the pandemic becomes extremely out of control, government force করতে পারে না আমাদেরকে?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You have to take the vaccine whether you like it or not. The government can force, and if the government forces, that will definitely influence our choices. So the incentives or disincentives is not necessarily through the market naturally. It can also be externally done through forced by the government or even through some contract. Okay. Now, the third concept that we want to look at is exchange. So before that, let me. So any questions regarding incentives before we move to exchange?
No, sir.
Okay. Exchange টা কি? What do you understand by the word exchange?
এক্সচেঞ্জ হচ্ছে কোনো একটা প্রোডাক্টের বিনিময়ে আমরা অন্য কি অফার করছি সেই প্রোডাক্টের জন্য।
Exchange হচ্ছে something is moving from individual A to individual B.
Yes, sir. There will be two parties involved.
হ্যাঁ, মানে at least two parties.
There will be two participants and আমাদের দুইজন কিছু না কিছু হচ্ছে বিনিময় করতে হবে এক্সচেঞ্জে।
It's a kind of trade-off.
প্রোডাক্ট আর বর্তমানে এটা হচ্ছে প্রোডাক্টের বিনিময়ে আমরা প্রোডাক্টের এগেইনস্টে আমরা প্রাইস অফার করি বা এরকম কিছু মনিটারি টার্ম।
Okay.
Yes, sir. But আগে there was this thing called barter system যেখানে আমরা let's say একটা ভেড়ার বিনিময়ে we used to give something else to them, but এখন আমরা monetary দিয়ে মানে monetary জিনিস দিয়ে করি, যেটা আগে আমরা অন্য ছাগলের বিনিময়ে একটা ভেড়া দিতাম বা এরকম একটা কিছু আমরা করতাম আগে যেটা।
আচ্ছা,
That was the practice.
that
years
was
ago.
in barter system. Money came, etc., etc. Prices came, and then we started transacting on the market, right?
So give something and receive something in the same kind of in return.
And we use money as a medium of exchange. Eto?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the first thing is, do we all agree that exchange means something moves from one hand to another?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if we agree on this one, the next thing that we want to agree on is the exchange forced or voluntary?
So voluntary.
Voluntary, yes.
Voluntary.
Acha, why voluntary? Come on. Voluntary না হলে প্রবলেমটা কি হবে?
Sir, voluntary না হলে তো এটা ছিনতাই হয়ে যাবে।
Acha, we all know the story of Robin Hood, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Robin Hood used to rob from the rich, and whatever he got from the rich, he used to give it to the poor.
Or
Now, this is a very novel idea, but সব rich people নাকি খারাপ?
no.
Some rich people have worked very hard, very carefully, and they've saved their money through legal means. They paid the taxes to the government. They haven't broken any law. And Robin Hood comes and just, isn't that a transaction also? Exchange?
নো স্যার, ওটাকে আমরা ট্রানজ্যাকশন বলতে পারি না। ট্রানজ্যাকশন হচ্ছে যে আমাদের ইচ্ছায়, মানে আমাদের কনসেন্টে আমরা কোনো জিনিস এক্সচেঞ্জ করলে সেটাকে আমরা ট্রানজ্যাকশন বলতে পারি। বাট স্যার, আমি মনে করি যে ট্রানজ্যাকশন যখন ওই যে ভেড়ার বিনিময়ে ছাগল দেয়া, এটাকেও কিন্তু ট্রানজ্যাকশন বলা যাবে না, তার কারণ এখানে কোনো ধরনের ভেড়ার যে মূল্যটা ছাগলের সেই মূল্য নাও থাকতে পারে। তো এটাকে আমরা ট্রানজ্যাকশন বলতে পারবো।
The first thing that we need to know is the transaction has to be voluntary.
ইয়েস স্যার।
মানে জোর করলে হবে না। আচ্ছা, জোর করে হলে হবে কি? We are talking about markets as a sum total of all buyers and all selling decisions. If the transactions are not voluntary, then the total market outcome will not be maximized. The welfare.
Yes, sir.
So the first, the basic assumption of any transaction is that we will first of all assume that the transactions are voluntary. Why? Because if they're not voluntary, একটা দুটো transaction voluntary নাই হইতে পারে একটা মার্কেটে। But if it is a systematic problem in the market system that the transactions are not voluntary, the whole system will be definitely unstable. System cannot be stable. So আমাদের প্রথম জিনিসটা exchange, we are defining it as a good that's moving from individual A's hand to individual B's hand. And we are doing the exchange in the market. Now, what is a market? A market is a place where large-scale cooperation is possible. কিরকম? আমরা নিউ মার্কেটে গেলাম মাছ কিনলাম। ওই নিউ মার্কেটে যদি না থাকতো, তাহলে মাছ কিনতে হলে কি হতো? আমাদের অনেক যন্ত্রণা পোহাতে হতো না? বা মুরগি
Yes,
কিনতে
sir, of
যাচ্ছি,
course.
Yes, sir.
ফল কিনতে যাচ্ছি, whatever. We go to New Market. I'm using New Market because it's just 10-minute walk from my house. You have another market in wherever you're living. So the first thing is that the markets encourage large-scale cooperation. That means many buyers and many sellers, they meet in order to make an transaction. But that transaction has to be voluntarily done. If it's not voluntarily done, then the sum total of the welfare in the market, either the producers will win or the consumers will win. একদিন দুই দিন একদল জিততে পারে, একদল হারতে পারে। But if it becomes systematic, that producers are winning all the time or consumers are winning all the time, will that be a stable system?
No, sir.
It cannot be a stable system. It will also not ensure maximization of welfare. Okay, so that's the first thing that we want to know. Second হচ্ছে, I don't know why I gave this example. But some exchanges like kidneys cannot be exchanged in any market, তাই না?
জি স্যার, কিডনি
Yes,
কি
sir.
অফার করতে পারবে না?
না, অফার করতে পারবে। There is only one.
ব্লাড রিলেশন লাগবে তো, বাংলাদেশে তো মেবি ব্লাড রিলেশন লাগে।
There is only one country where kidneys are legally exchanged, and that's Iran. পৃথিবীর আর কোনো দেশে কিডনি মার্কেট legal না। In Iran, you can sell and buy kidneys, but ওটার স্পেশাল ম্যাচিং লাগবে না কিডনিতে?
Yes, sir, of course.
I want to sell my kidney, but that doesn't mean that you can come and just buy it from me, right? So we, okay, can I give a pause for 10 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Sure,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yeah, yes, sir.
Oh, still, I do office with the left. Okay, do you hear echoes in the background? Background কোনো echo হচ্ছে?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, then we're back then. আচ্ছা, তাহলে we get back. Okay, so what we were saying that is the exchanges are taking place in the market because markets encourage large-scale cooperation without any central coordination. We don't need the government to monitor it. We don't need a governing authority to monitor it. People go there to voluntarily exchange. Why do we need the voluntary exchange component? Because we want the exchanges to be welfare maximizing. So if most of the transactions are voluntarily done, then it will increase the welfare of the market outcome. Robin Hood would steal from the rich and give to the poor. Although his intentions were noble, the transaction was not voluntary. The poor were happy at the cost of the rich. Both were not happy at the same time. This is what we are going to be interested in. That means the transaction should be mutually beneficial, right? It benefits both parties at the same time. That's why if it is not benefiting both parties at the same time, if that is a systematic problem, then we are not interested in those types of transactions. When exchange is voluntary, all parties benefit together, the social welfare is maximized. And when this happens, then markets automatically determine what to produce, how to produce it, the technology, and who gets what. আচ্ছা, এইটা হলো এখন একটু ইন্টারেস্টিং। Shall I move on to number 4, information set?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Information set is, do the two people who are making a transaction, the buyer and the seller, have the same set of information? If they have the same set of information, then both of them can make a proper decision. If one of them has more information than the other, then the person who holds more information will have an added advantage. Taina?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You may have come across this phenomenon. It's called the lemons market, a used car market. If we go to buy a second-hand car from a used car market, the sellers have more information about the product than the buyers. Taina?
Yes, sir.
So in this case, this type of market cannot be stable. If one party consistently has more information about the quality of the product than the other, whether that is sellers over buyers or buyers over sellers, that type of a market cannot be cannot be stable. Similarly, in an insurance market, what happens? The buyer knows more about his actual health than the insurance company, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, if this is a system, if this is systematic, will the insurance market exist? All the sick patients will start buying insurance, and after some time, the insurance companies will go out of business. Initially, we will assume that the information set is symmetric. What does symmetric mean? The buyer and the seller have the same set of information about the quality of the product, not the performance. I'll elaborate a performance later. The first problem that arises when we talk about information set is that the buyer and the seller have the same information about the quality of the product. So if I am buying a genuine phone, then as a buyer, I know that it's the genuine phone, so it's more expensive. The seller also knows that what he's giving to me is the genuine phone. So the phones will be selling at a higher price, right? Now if we go to Gulistan underground market, some of you know this market, right? Gulistan underground market, কেউ গেছে Gulistan underground market is just opposite the stadium. কেউ গেছে?
Yes, sir.
Definitely go and see it, even if it's for academic interest. ওখানে সব 2 নাম্বার জিনিস বিক্রি হয়।
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Very
হ্যাঁ,
true, sir.
সেটাও কোনো সমস্যা না, বাংলাদেশের সব নাম্বার শুরু হয়েছে 2 থেকে, এদেশে 1 বলে কিছু নাই। হ্যাঁ, তো এখন ওখানে 2 নাম্বারই জিনিস বিক্রি হয় মানে কি? Everybody knows, buyers and sellers, that not high end goods are not sold here. So what is the stable outcome of the market? All the cheap products are sold. Switch this situation to Bosundhara in Panthapot, you will find that all the high-end mobile phones are sold there, right? Why? Because the sellers and the buyers in both the markets are aware about the actual quality of the product. They have the same information. In Gulistan underground market, sellers and buyers both know that low-end phones will be sold. In the Bosundhara market, sellers and buyers both know that the high-end will be sold. So we will be starting off with the assumption that the buyers and the sellers both have the same set of information about the quality of the product. Later on, we'll break this assumption as we move on, and we'll also break this assumption in another way. There are some goods, until and unless you use them, you will never know whether they are good or bad. For example, if you're buying tires for your car, তাই না, এটা 6 মাস ইউজ না করে কি আমরা বলতে পারবো যে টায়ারটা ভালো ছিল কিনা? You might buy a very good set of tires, say 10,000 টাকা per tire for your car, 40,000 টাকা খরচ করে খুব শখ করে টায়ারটা কেনা হলো, 3 মাস পর দেখা গেল there's some fault in it, তাই না? এই জিনিসটা কি কেউ গ্যারান্টি দিতে পারবে before the transaction?
No, sir. No.
Because some goods are, as we will see in our textbook, termed as experience goods. Until and unless we use them, we will never know for certainty whether they were good or bad. Clear? ঠিক আছে তো?
Yes,
So,
yes, sir.
যখন
Yes,
আমরা
sir.
when we come to that part, we'll address it. So initially, we assume that information is symmetric. That means if we are trading at Gulistan underground market, sellers and buyers both know the same information that এখানে low end mobile phones বিক্রি হবে. If we are trading in Bosundhara shopping mall in Panthapot, sellers and buyers both know that এখানে high end বিক্রি হবে. আচ্ছা, if it is asymmetric information cannot be a stable outcome, why it's not that, we'll address that later. আচ্ছা, এইটা হচ্ছে we are not interested in this, but আমি just একটু অল্প একটু বলি. In this class, at the moment we have 34 people, and I think it's high time now I take a screenshot. Okay, I'm giving you 2 minutes time to turn your mobile on. Camera. Okay, so screenshot. Since we've been asked to do this, it's so embarrassing, but anyhow. Yeah. What's happening with my mobile? Okay. So I'm ready. Okay. Now. জাকারিয়া হোসেন মানিক, তোমার ডাক নামটা তো খুব সুন্দর। মাসুম, ইনোসেন্ট, মজিদ হোসেন।
Yes, sir. Zakaria Hussain Manik, sir.
Turn your mobile camera on.
Yes, sir. I'm just get back in home, so my camera was off, sir.
Okay, now it's on. Okay.
Yes,
and
sir.
Masum, the innocent person, and Mazid Hussain. Acha, last call. Masum and Mazid Hussain. Okay, then you two are off right now. Okay, lovely. Let's get back to the original one. Okay, so কি যেন বলছিলাম?
So distribution.
Acha. So at the moment there are 33 people in the class, with me 34. What do you expect? Marking in this course will be fair. Don't you expect a fair marking from me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Acha,
yes,
Yes, sir.
fair marking মানে কি? If you work hard and you tried your best, you get a good grade, right?
Yes, sir.
Isn't that what a system should be?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, now this is this particular course in 2022. Let's assume that if those of you who get the top grade get a good job, those of you who get bottom grade don't get a good job. 20 years later, what happens? You've worked very hard, you got a fair grade, and then you went on and did well in life. Your children will become more, they will enjoy more privileges than the person who got a low grade. Isn't that what going to happen over time?
Yes, sir.
So what happens is a fair system over time can create inequality. Right
Yes,
now,
sir.
you work hard, you get a good grade, and if this is the indicator that okay, if you get a good grade from this particular university, you get a good job. 20 years later, your children will be enjoying more facilities than somebody who didn't get a good grade. So one of the biggest problems of markets is that at a static point of time, today's time, it will be fair. But over time, it can create inequality. Okay, I worked very hard, so naturally my children will benefit a little bit more. So we are not interested in this distribution part of markets. For the time being, we'll just look at markets in a static form. That at this particular moment, is it fair? Is it creating incentives? Over time, it can be unequal, and markets can lead to inequality. But we are not interested in that. Acha. Acha, micro and macro, you're familiar with this, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This course is not macroeconomics. Although this is called managerial economics, basically we are going to study microeconomics. I don't know why business schools don't change their name by now, but this is actually applied microeconomics. Macroeconomics will be dealt in a different course, probably it's 501, 502 by somebody else. This is what we want to discuss now. What is positive and what is normative economics? Why we are not interested in normative? If you open the newspaper আজকাল থেকে open করে না, we flip it through our mobile phone, right? So if we look at the newspaper, or if we scroll through Facebook or whatever, wherever we get our news from, we will find that
Sir, did you call my name previously?
what's your name?
Sir, MD Majid Hussain.
Yes, where was your mobile camera?
Sir, my mom had just called. She was out of the home, so she told me to feed the cat. So she called, and as I muted, my friend told me that you are calling my name. It was very poor timing.
দেখ মার কথা যখন বলছো 7 খুন মাফ পাইলা আর কি, ঠিক আছে? হ্যাঁ, আমার নিজের মা নাই তো আমি তো হাফ এতিম, ঠিক আছে? যাও এবারের জন্য মাফ পাইলা। ওকে, নেক্সট টাইম বি কেয়ারফুল, ওকে?
Thank you, sir.
ওকে, মার ব্যাপার বললে আর কিছু বলার নাই। আচ্ছা, তো এখন যেটা বলছিলাম, কি যেন বলছিলাম, ভুলেও তো যাই। Oh, so if you see that two economists are disagreeing, right? একজন বলবে যে this is how the COVID solution problem should be addressed. Another person is saying this is how it would be addressed. This is called normative economics, where we make value judgments. This should be or should not be. The moment we use the word should be or should not be, we are looking at ethics and morality, right?
Yes, sir.
We are not interested in ethics and morality in this course. We are looking at what happens, what does not happen. Why it happens, why it does not happen. Yes and no answers. We are not interested in any kind of ethical or value judgments. Okay, so if we are looking at ethical and value judgments, then we will be entering into a world called normative economics, where we look at economics as a social science, which delves into ethics and morality. We will just be asking, why did demand fall? What is the consequence? Why did supply increase? What is the consequence? So we are going to look at decisions or things from a pure point of view, pure science. Okay. So this is the end of part 2. I mean, does anybody have any questions before we get into part 3, the last part?
Sir, normative
No, sir.
economics, sir, I have. Sir,
হ্যাঁ।
normative economics একটু যদি এক্সাম্পল দিতেন স্যার, মানে what kind of economics are like used in normative economics, স্যার, একটু ইন্টারেস্ট ছিল।
আচ্ছা, ইন্টারেস্ট হচ্ছে নরমেটিভ ইকোনমিক্সে what's the আচ্ছা এই think about the COVID pandemic right now. Look at the debate in Bangladesh, look at the debate in India, look at the debate everywhere. Has anybody come to a conclusive conclusion? একজন এক একটা কথা বলতেছে না?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is the tone of their language? এটা করা উচিত, এটা করা উচিত না, এভাবে কথা বলে না?
Yes, sir. Kind of aggressive tone. Yes, sir.
Aggressive tones the bottom, but the thing is, the tone is that this is what should be done. Another group will be shouting, this is what should not be done. Here's now, when we use the word should and should not, then we are using ethics and morality. Ethics হচ্ছে some behavior that the society determines for us. Morality হচ্ছে our spiritual behavior. ঠিক আছে? Easy for example, the example that we just made, that markets can create inequality over time. Now, what is the general solution? This government will come and help the poor, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's it is a particular society to fight, right?
Yes, sir.
The government will do it. That answer you can never come to a conclusion. Mr. X will say government এভাবে করা উচিত. Mr. Y will say government এইভাবে করা উচিত. Can you come to a conclusive conclusion?
No, sir. No, sir. Each and every person has their own opinion. Yes, sir.
Opinion, and they also have their lobbying, etc., etc. So that type of economics we are not interested in. Policy economics. Okay, we are looking at economics from a science, as a scientist. Price increases, what is the consequence? Price decreases, what is the consequence? Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so now we stop this part.